everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. This is going to be my first episode with the backdrop here, my new kind of setup. I think it looks pretty good. It's kind of nice. You may notice that the next episode after this doesn't have this backdrop, and that's because I didn't film these quite in order. But this is actually really nice. I like the way this looks. So I'm probably going to use this from now on, but not the next video after this one. This is going to be the first one, though. Today I'm going to actually be talking about the fifth and final season of Miami Vice. This is the fifth out of my 6 episodes on the entire Miami Vice saga. Next episode after this, I'm going to be looking at the 2006 movie with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx. So this is the fifth and final year. Actually, I brought my DVD this time so I could show you. This is the fifth and final year of the show, and this is I like to think of this season as a slight improvement over season 4, but it still has its problems. This season kind of wraps up the whole amnesia thing that Crockett deals with at the end of season 4. There's actually 2 episodes. The beginning 2 episodes of the season kind of deal with that whole ordeal. It's kind of a mess, to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of those episodes. They're kind of well done, but it's very hokey. And something needs to be said about this season is once they wrap that up, it's kind of back to business as usual, but there are more changes that kind of happen behind the scenes with this season that did have an impact on the show, I should say. One thing in particular is Dick Wolf actually left the show by this point. So we have a show with kind of like no showrunner, and it is kind of noticeable at certain points because there is a messy kind of side to this season. Dick Wolf kind of stayed on in name only. Supposedly, actually, a lot of the actors had creative control over this season, which is kind of surprising. But I think that's why we get a lot of episodes where the cast is really split up, because none of them had the time to film together because they were all looking for other jobs. They knew the show was ending. So you'll have a lot of episodes with just Crockett, just Tubbs. There's actually a lot of Castillo-only episodes in this season, which is actually kind of interesting because I like the character of Castillo, but there's a few too many of them in this season. Something else that happens this year is that the composer Jan Hammer actually left the show as well. So we have another gentleman, Tim Truman, takes over for Hammer, and the music in the show is actually very different compared to what you got in seasons 1 to 4. The synthesizers are kind of gone now, and they're replaced mostly with electric guitar riffs. And to be honest with you, they're kind of badass, and it works for the show. For whatever reason, for this season, it kind of works. There were touches of guitar in other seasons, but it's basically all guitar in this fifth and final season. And it kind of works. It kind of matches the tone of this season. Because something else that happens with this fifth season is that after the whole memory loss thing is resolved, the show kind of takes on this nihilistic tone. And what do I mean by that? Crockett and Tubbs, along with some of the other cops on the show, kind of begin to hang it up in a sense, which is kind of interesting because it is the last season of the show. But they kind of start to see the fact that nothing that they do is really stopping crime. It just keeps happening no matter what they do. It's kind of like a fruitless venture to fight crime anymore. And they kind of get sick of it, which is interesting. I think it's kind of a wild thing, the fact that the whole kind of show now kind of feels like, oh, whatever, I'm just doing this to do it at this point. And it's kind of surprising because seasons 1 to 4, they're really gung-ho about fighting drug lords and stopping crime and stuff. And in this season, they're kind of like, I don't know, it's the job, But in the end, the job kind of gets the best of them, which kind of leads to the finale, which I'll talk about in a minute. The style in the show kind of changes this season too. Most interestingly, you see a lot more black in this season, kind of back to that third season kind of motif. The pastels are still kind of there, but they're very muted, and they're only used in very, very, very small touches. Honestly, Crockett, near the end of the season, wears more pastels, and normally it's like blue, like a light blue, or like a light turquoise. Occasionally there's a pink in there, but it's mainly black and white or like muted colors throughout the most of the season. And Tubbs actually shaves off that awful beard that he had in the 4th season. Thank God. There are some guys that can pull off a beard. That poor guy is not one of them. Poor Philip Michael Thomas. He is put through some outfits in this season that Stevie Wonder would go, what the hell is this guy wearing? I mean, it is awful. And I mean, I swear to God, if you look online, you can just Google Philip Michael Thomas Miami Vice Season 5, and some of the outfits that come up are truly scary. There's one outfit he wears in this, actually I think it's in a promo photo, where it's like a brown leopard print jacket, and it is scary as shit. It is frightening to look at, but the other big change in this season, and it's something notable, even though it's very minor, to me it was a very big shock, and I guess it was also something surprising to people back in the 80s, is that Crockett wears jeans in this season. And I know that may not seem like a big deal, but when you have a style that basically forebode jeans for most of the 80s, all of a sudden when a guy starts wearing ripped Levi jeans, that's a big fashion clash. That's a big shock. I think it works. I think it looks great with the outfits that Crockett wears in this season. Although there is an episode where he wears a leather jacket, and I just can't imagine living in Florida now. I can't even fucking think about wearing a leather jacket in this kind of heat. But again, it's a TV show. They did film it in Florida, but I don't know. I couldn't figure out the leather jacket thing. But the jeans, I think, was a big thing. It actually, supposedly, this show, when Crockett started wearing jeans again, it was almost like a signal to people that it's okay to wear jeans again. And I was very surprised by that. I never realized that until talking to people that watched the show during the time period when it was on. It's actually a very big thing that Don Johnson wore jeans in this final season. Who knew, right? The last thing I wanted to talk about was the finale of the show. The last episode is called Free Fall, and it's kind of interesting because it really is a really well-fitting finale for the show. And there are quite a few episodes in this last season that are really awful. Not as many in the 5th season. The 4th season. I'm sorry. There is one episode in here though that I have to talk about because I thought it's most likely one of the most risque episodes in the history of television that I've ever seen. But I think it's called Leap of Faith. And basically, it's an episode that barely includes Crockett and Tubbs. I guess it was supposed to be a spin-off for another show that's going to be like a continuation of Miami Vice that never happened. And basically, it's like college students trying to find the source of drugs on their campus. And it is really racy. I mean, there's actual nudity at the beginning of the episode. It's uncensored nudity. And I couldn't believe that this actually may have aired at one point on NBC of all channels. There is some really, really touchy stuff in that episode. And I was just surprised. You should actually watch that episode just to see what I'm talking about. It is pretty intense. But the finale, going back to what I was saying before, the finale really recaptures the tone of the first couple seasons, mainly like the first and second seasons. It still has that kind of nihilistic tone, but Crockett and Tubbs kind of get reinvigorated for most of the episode, only to kind of be shot down in the end. And again, I'm not going to give anything away, but the ending is really kind of it's a kick-ass ending, a very reminiscent of the pilot episode. Again, no Phil Collins this time around, but it really does get your blood pumping, and I think it's a great finale. I really like the last couple minutes of the episode. Very touching. I teared up a little, I gotta be honest with you. I kind of tear up a little every time I see it. And I just think it's great. I think it's really great. I think the finale, actually, it's a 2-hour finale, by the way. I think the finale actually lifts up the entire season and makes it better than it could have been, because there are a couple episodes in this season that are real stinkers. Especially one of the tub-centric episodes, which is called The Cell Within. That is a really, really bad episode. I almost fast-forwarded through the episode, but I got through it in the end. Overall, I give this season a good. Again, it's not as great as season 1 or 2, I don't think. But I think it's right up there with probably some of the highs of season 3. Again, not the worst season out of the series, but it's not one of the best either. It's okay. It's passable, and it's worth watching just for the finale, to be honest. The finale is a great piece of television, and I think I think it lifts the show. I'd love to see the show come back, but I don't think that many actors could fill the roles that these guys did, and I don't think it would be right to kind of just throw everything away that had been built up for all those years. I'd like to see these guys come back and do a new show and kind of continue the legacy for a whole new audience, because honestly, we kind of need a show like this now. There's not many good cop shows on TV right now. There are a lot of them, but then not many of them are good. But again, thank you for coming back to Cavanaugh's Corner. I appreciate you sticking with me through the series. There's one more to go, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.